Welcome to the channel, everybody. My name is Nathan ELEMENTofFROST, and we are back here yet again doing another episode review video for this week's episode of Fear the Walking Dead that aired yesterday on AMC, which would have been May the 15th, by the way. This was Season 2, Episode 6, entitled Sicut, Cervus, or at least that's what I think it's titled. I'm still not too sure on it. I still don't know. But that's what I think it is. And as you guys know, posted predictions back on Thursday. If you guys want to go check that out, link will be in the description below under predictions. And you guys can go watch that video. If you guys haven't caught up to this week's episode of Fear the Walking Dead, make sure that you do not watch this video. It goes without saying. And, can't really review an episode of Fear the Walking Dead, or anything for that matter, without spoiling some things. So if you continue to watch from now on, it's on you. Okay, so spoilers. That's it. They gave you a warning. That's all I'm committing to. You know what I mean? So don't hate me for it. You're in for the long run. All right. Sicut, Cervus, Season 2, Episode 6. The second to last episode, everybody, of the first half of Fear the Walking Dead. Okay? So, that means next week is the mid-season finale, which is episode 7. So, in my personal opinion, I think this will go to the outstanding of 15-episode season like it was predicted. And that's pretty exciting, you know what I mean? Mid-season finales, episode 7. They wouldn't dare give us a 6th episode on the backside. I don't think that would happen. 13 episodes. I don't think so. I think it's going to be 8 on the next half, which will turn out to be 15 in total, which is what I'm predicting. Okay, so just throwing that out there. That's what's going to happen in my personal opinion. It could be 7 and 7. You know what I mean? We don't know. But to get into the review, let's go ahead and do it. Okay, so the episode starts off at a church in Baja. Okay, so we actually get to see the perspective of Thomas Abigail, essentially, is what we get to see where he lives and everything like that. He went to a church, and the priest basically is delivering a sermon and exhorts his parishioners to fight the dead or whatever. You know what I mean? So it was just a really religious part of the episode. Didn't really follow it along too much, and the people in the church take their communion, which, by the way, is like the wafer things, you know what I mean? The really weird... Don't get me wrong, okay? If this is your thing, do your thing, right? It's really weird to me, in my personal opinion. I just don't see the point, you know what I mean? I really don't. I get that. I guess that's what it, means to be an atheist, I suppose, is I have no idea, what the hell the wafers are supposed to, represent or something. I really don't know, right? I have no idea about that, so... If you guys are interested in explaining that to me in the comments, definitely feel free to do so. That would be interesting. All right, so I'll go ahead and do that. In the town square now, they all arm themselves, everything like that. Thomas Abigail arrives in his truck and urges the priest to stop. Do not protect her. The priest basically says to her, or to him rather, and then suddenly the churchgoers begin to keel over as blood pours out of their eyes. So... this is essentially revealed to be, the guy is essentially poisoning, his churchgoers and himself and, with those wafers. And that's actually a very key part of the episode, as we get to see later with, Strand and Thomas, okay? So keep that in mind. We'll get back into those wafers. The Abigail approaches a Mexican flotilla that is guarding the border, rather. Travis checks in with Chris on the Abigail. Chris asks why everyone is mad at him. Travis just basically says, according to Madison, Reed wasn't infected when you shot him, right? And Chris was basically devastated, thinking Madison was on his side, saying, when they were bonding last episode, she sort of assured him that it's okay, you know what I mean? You had to do what you got to do, right? But at the same time, this now sort of seems like a little bit of a turn, for her on him, by him. He thinks that Madison's basically turning on him. Essentially, saying things basically behind his back that she didn't want to say in front of his face and stuff like that, right? So he sort of gets hurt by this, and I think the biggest reason he got hurt by this is because I think he sort of, thinks of her as like a new mother figure, if you will. Now, especially after last episode where they bonded really, really closely, I think that he got pretty close to her, and now essentially she just she hurt him, right? So we could sort of see that happening, with Liza and everything like that. So, technically Liza hurt him because she died, yada, yada, yada. And I think he's sort of comparing that, you know what I mean? I think he's comparing her concern for him as, like, flat out, treachery, I guess. You could put it. She's committing treason, essentially, on their relationship, if you will. Okay? So, that's that. Nothing too big there yet, but we do get to see some really weird developments in the character of Chris a little later on the episode. I think that he's going to be turning out to be fine. You know what I mean? I think he's just going through a phase. I could be totally wrong. He could go full Shane. We don't know. We have no idea, but we will get into it, okay? So, in the wheelhouse now, Louise prepares to meet with his military contact on the flotilla and pay for their passage. Strand sees military officers approaching in a boat and basically concerned that a second officer is coming along with Louise's contact, okay? So he orders Madison to hide everyone below deck, and she does just that. We see that in the sneak peek for this week's episode and in the promos and stuff like that. You guys would have, seen all of that if you watched my prediction video, which again, link in the description below. So she gets everybody below deck, and from the engine room now, Madison's group listens to the conversation between Strand, Louise, and the two military officers. And then sudden gunfire basically erupts after the officers insist on searching the boat to make sure that there are no infected, are on board or anything like that. And then if that would have happened, they would have found Madison and all those guys. And they only have enough funds, for those two people, which is Strand and Louise, right? So that's that, right? Anyways, Madison's group basically charges upstairs. Mortally wounded Louise lies next to the two dead officers. Daniel stabs the officers to prevent them from turning. Louise begs Daniel not to stab them, and then he basically hands Ophelia a medallion with an owl face, and he basically asks her to give it to his mother, and Daniel flings the medallion into the ocean, and Louise whispers to Nick. So we don't know what Louise said to Nick, okay? So we do get to see a little bit of a struggle with, Daniel wanting to kill him and everything like that. His kid, Ophelia, was basically, saying, no, don't kill him, everything like that, because he was still alive. He was definitely fatally wounded, you know what I mean? I don't think there's any really chance that he will survive. Could be wrong, though. You know what I mean? I could totally be wrong. I'm not sure if we've seen the demise of him in this episode. I can't quite remember. It was very, very late last night when I did watch the episode, but as far as I know, I don't want to say that he's alive because he totally could be dead. He totally could be dead. We don't know. I have no idea. Alright, so, like I said, Louise whispered to Nick. Strand steers the Abigail towards Mexico, the Mexico coastline. On land now, Strand sees the group into town. They find a pile of dead parishioners, parishioners, whatever you guys want to call them. You know what I mean? The churchgoers, whatever. In front of the church, obviously that was from the wafers and everything like that. Strand spots Thomas's truck and basically calls Thomas's name. And, sees if he can find him. He's seen the truck there, and now he's worried that, Thomas is obviously, hurt or infected or, something happened to him, right? The group fights off a herd of infected churchgoers, again, if you will, followers. I thought this was a very cool part of the episode where we get to see this. And it was very, very weird, guys. One part in this, okay? So let's get into it. Daniel grabs a young infected boy, becomes paralyzed by the memory of clutching a young boy by the neck in his past life. Ophelia kills the infected boy for Daniel. Nick sits stunned after killing a young infected girl. So he's very, very hurt by the fact that he had to kill a little girl because she was obviously a walker. Madison now is overcome by an infected and fights for her life. The infected is literally on top of Madison, about to bite her. And Chris basically was about to help out, and then watches her struggle from a few steps away and does nothing to help. So, like I said, this is where we get to see the first very, very weird turn of Chris. We don't know what the hell's going on with him, right? Did he just freeze? What happened? Does he want her punished for, turning on him, perhaps? When he thought that she was on his side, but she really wasn't, because she told Travis that he killed Reed, even though Reed wasn't infected. He literally just sat there and watched her almost get eaten. And Alicia screams at him and saves Madison herself. The group piles into Thomas's truck and flees. So essentially, Chris stood there and almost watched Madison die, and Alicia actually saw it. Madison didn't. She was too busy, fighting for her life and all. But Alicia actually saw the fact that he was standing there watching her, right? So we'll dig into that a little later in the episode, okay? So Strand drives the group to Thomas's gated estate, where Celia, which is Louise's mother, greets them. Strand informs her that Louise is dead. Okay, so he did die. All right, so he did. He did, essentially. By the way, if you're wondering, I'm reading a recap here on AMC.com, just to sort of I'm just reading the recap and then giving my thoughts on it, right? So not everything is right here off the page. This is just essentially the transcript, so I can remember, detail by detail and pick out what things are very, very important, okay? So that's what I do, all right? It's not a copy and paste from the website, okay? So if you guys want to go read the transcript for yourself, make sure you do so. I'll leave a link in the description if you guys want it, okay? So, like I said, he drives them to Thomas's gates, where Louise's mother greets them, and Strand informs her that Louise is dead. So I wouldn't have known that he was dead if I didn't read this transcript. So it's a good damn thing I did. You know what I mean? So, and he basically says, he's one of them now. And she basically says, then he'll find his way back. So she is under the impression, she's sort of like Herschel, in a way, back in season 2 of, I guess that's pretty appropriate. Season 2 of The Walking Dead and season 2 of Fear the Walking Dead. There's a character that essentially thinks that the dead, I guess the undead, are not actually dead. Okay, so she basically says, then he'll find his way back. She thinks that they're just sick. It's not the case, you know what I mean? But she can believe what she wants to believe because it's her family, right? So she can go for it, whatever. Maid asks the group to check their weapons at the gate. Everyone complies, and Daniel reluctantly hands over his gun and knife. Okay, so again, this is sort of where I got, sort of nervous for the group, because last time we seen, a place that demanded for their weapons, we were talking about Terminus, the crazy cannibals that eat people. I guess that's what cannibals do, so I guess that was sort of contradicting. But nonetheless, Terminus, a very, very bad place, right? And they sort of demanded the same thing, okay? So, Daniel reluctantly hands over his gun and knife. Strand rushes to Thomas's bedroom, which he is there with a blood-soaked bandage on his arm, and he is bitten, unfortunately, for Strand. Now, this was a very, very emotional moment for Strand, something that we haven't really seen, from Strand. We always see Strand put up this, brick wall sort of in front of him, hiding his emotions and everything like that. And this is actually where we get to see, him crack. And it sucked, man. You know what I mean? It really, really did. We know that he cares about Thomas, more than anything in this world, and we get to see that a little later on in the episode with his idea or his plan that he fortunately enough does not go through with, right? He does not go through with it, and I'm sure as hell glad about that, and you guys will know what I'm talking about. Okay, so yeah, Strand helps him into bed. Chris now is talking to Alicia, okay? He enters a room when she was watching TV. Chris asks Alicia if she is mad at him, and she basically stands up and she accuses him of standing by while Madison got attacked outside the church. And he basically insists that he merely froze, you know what I mean? He didn't want to just let her die, he would never do that. And he could totally be telling the truth right now. We don't know, right? We have no idea what his actual motives are. What is he actually planning on doing? We don't know. We could be sort of just catching him in really, really bad, awkward moments that make him, seem like a bad guy or seem like he wants to hurt Madison in a certain way. But does he really? You know what I mean? Is he really that far gone, already? I personally don't think so. I think it's a little too obvious. I could totally be wrong. He could be a psycho serial killer and, just want to kill everybody who ever, confronts him or turns on him or, anything like that. You know what I mean? He could go full shame. We have no idea. He could just start murdering people left and right, stab his father in the throat. Shit like that. We've seen shit like that in The Walking Dead before, whether or not be The Walking Dead TV show or Fear the Walking Dead, where we could talk about the comic book. We could talk about The Walking Dead Telltale video games and everything like that. There's a lot of that shit in there, I'll tell you that much. And, really, we've seen it before. Anything can happen in this universe, right? Anything can happen. But this is really, really, really weird about her. about Chris that makes me question, did he actually mean to threaten Alicia? Because basically Alicia presses him, saying, did you really just freeze, stuff like that. And she wants to tell somebody, and Chris actually ended up threatening to hurt her, if she tells anyone what she saw. Okay? So she actually said outright, she was like, I want to tell somebody, and he was like, you can't, and she basically replied with, well, what if I do? And then he said, I don't want to hurt anybody. So, was that a threat? Was it just taken out of context? I think that it might have been a little bit of a threat to sort of put up a wall, between being in complete trouble. You know what I mean? I think it might have been, a little bit of a threat. I don't think he's going to have, any reason to hurt Alicia whatsoever. He's put a lot of fight and courage into basically saving her, a few times now, actually. For instance, back in the season finale of Fear the Walking Dead Season 1, he actually literally stood up to, 4 armed guards, armed military soldiers that were trying to hurt Alicia, may or may not have been trying to, get her to come with them so that she could be some sort of weird sex slave. That's what it sort of seemed like to me. It was very, very creepy and just cringeworthy, if you will. And he stood up to them. He punched them in the face, fought them off, sort of protected her. You know what I mean? It's his sister, in a sense. I mean, it is a sister, right? Like, half-sister, I guess? Maybe stepsister? Who knows? Whatever. And he cares about her, I think. And I don't think that he would ever really hurt her. He just wanted to, sort of put outright, you know what I mean? I don't want to hurt anyone. And maybe he was just referring to Madison, you know what I mean? Maybe he was. Maybe he was just saying, what if I do, she said, what if I do tell someone? And he just said, I don't want to hurt anyone. Maybe that wasn't really a threat intended for Alicia, saying, if you tell somebody, I will hurt you. Maybe it was just a straight up, I don't want to hurt anyone. I really did just freeze, right? Which, could very well be. But at the same time, I think it might have been a little tiny bit of a threat, to sort of reassure her that she shouldn't tell him. You know what I mean? But again, who knows? We have no idea at this point. There's been a lot of development with Chris, you know what I mean? I could just go full out fucking pitchforks and everything and just hunt that bastard down, right? I could totally do that, but I'm staying optimistic. And I don't believe, me personally, that he, would even threaten Alicia outright, saying, complete psychopath threaten. You know what I mean? I don't think that he would. I really don't. I really don't. And even if he did, I still don't think he would ever follow through with it. You know what I mean? I think he cares about her too much at this point. So, enough about that, okay? In the kitchen now, Nick tells Celia, which is basically, by the way, Thomas's mother, if anybody is, questionable on that, right? It's Thomas's mother. Okay, so Nick tells Celia that Louise asked for her when he died, and Celia calmly explains that the dead have always walked amongst them. The only difference now is that we can see them. And Madison overhears their conversation later and warns Cecilia that Nick is basically impressionable. And this was really aggravating to me. You know what I mean? It's just more of the same of Madison treating Nick like a kid. We even hear it in Madison saying, Nick is fragile, right? I get why she says that, because he was a drug addict, right? That can be fragile. But at the same time, as a survivor in this world, Nick is the baddest of the bad. You know what I mean? He is amazing. He's an amazing survivor. I mean, he figured out the whole, blood on the uniform and, walk through them all. He figured that out. And he's a survivor through and through, in my personal opinion. And she's just, in my opinion, going to stop treating him like a kid. That's what I think. And that's what I hope will happen, shortly or whatever. So Daniel now gazes at some photos of the dead posted at an outdoor shrine. He notices an owl carved into a tree trunk similar to Louise's medallion. Celia posts a photo of Louise and explains that Louise's death does not faze her because he was not shot in the head. Therefore, it is not over. And he sort of just brushed that off. Daniel sort of just walked away. Madison brings food to Thomas and Strand in their room. Thomas asks Madison to look after Strand when he dies. Ophelia summons Daniel to dinner and finds him sitting on his bed in a daze. Alicia tells Madison about Chris's threat. Madison then confronts Travis about Chris and worries that Chris is sick. Travis essentially defends Chris. I mean, it is his son, don't get me wrong. I would totally do the same. He defends Chris and angrily wonders, why Madison won't offer the same support to Chris that he always gave to Nick, when Nick was sick. And he has a very valid point, you know what I mean? It seems with her that it's all about her kids and, the hell with everybody else. So she definitely got to realize, if Chris is sick, there is a way to help him, you know what I mean? He can come back from it. He doesn't have to go full psychopath. He just needs help, you know what I mean? He really, really does. So if that's actually how Chris is acting now, if that's not just a misunderstanding, that's what he needs, you know what I mean? And I think that she should be there. Travis has a very valid point. Nick wasn't, if Chris is homicidal and everything like that, he wants to kill people, whatever, he's going crazy. Nick was never really like that, you know what I mean? It was a little bit toned down. He was a drug addict, but he wouldn't just kill people, right? So it is a little bit toned down there, but at the same time, a son is a son, and you need to help them, right? So Strand urges Thomas to end the suffering and let go of life, and Strand now comes up with his suggestion of, I could go with you, offering to kill himself so that they can remain together after death. So this is where I first started to see, Strand sort of thinking about that, and I was just hoping and literally hoping. I was going to say praying, but that doesn't really make sense seeing as though I'm atheist. I was literally hoping and crossing my fingers that that wouldn't happen. You know what I mean? I really, really like Strand's character. I want to see more development of it as a survivor aspect, off the boat and everything like that, looking sort of through his eyes as they, go on land, fight walkers there, stuff like that. A little more grittier, you know what I mean? I was looking forward to that with Strand, and I hope that we get to see it. And fortunately enough, he did not go through with the plan, but it doesn't end there. Okay, so Daniel takes a nighttime stroll and sees a young boy, which is Juan, place a dog down a chute that leads to a wine cellar. So what the hell just happened? Literally, I mean, that's literally what Daniel said in, Spanish. He said, what the hell? Nick accompanies Ophelia to the shrine where Ophelia prays to her mother. Nick sees the owl carving and has a flashback to the drug den at the Los Angeles church back in episode 1 of season 1. In the flashback, he sees his friend feasting on a body and his girlfriend and everything like that. And, this is sort of where we get to see Nick sort of have a transition or, some memories, come to pass, maybe the world's finally affecting him, if you will. You know what I mean? He said before that I was like this, a long time, and everybody's just sort of catching up to me, right? That's how he put it. And, maybe he's catching up to himself now. You know what I mean? Maybe now that he's not a drug dealer anymore, maybe this world is finally catching up to him, if you will. You know what I mean? Even though he's been living it for a while, but maybe the Walker aspect and, everybody's dead aspect of it is finally hitting him. We don't know, right? We have no idea. So maybe he's remembering his girlfriend and his other friends and stuff like that. I'm definitely interested in seeing, more of that development and stuff like that with Nick. I think that'll be interesting. Okay, so Daniel follows Juan to the wine cellar where Juan explains that he is talking to his mother, and Daniel enters the cellar asking, him to be introduced to her, and he sees a cell full of infected. So again, more similar to Herschel back in season 2 of The Walking Dead, right? With people holding infected because they think that they're just sick. They think that they're not dead and they're just sick. They can be eventually cured, their family, right? So that's what he sees in a cell. He sees infected, right? So walkers, essentially, they're feeding him, with that dog earlier down the chute. Yeah, sort of the same thing. Dogs compared to chickens in The Walking Dead. Yeah, we get to see that again. And it's pretty dark, I will say that. So Daniel confronts Celia about the infected now, and she explains that they are all family members of people who work on the estate. As she prepares 2 communion wafers, so we actually get to see now that she's the one who's making the poison wafers, and we could assume that she's the one who actually, maybe gave the wafers to the church in order for those churchgoers to eat them and everything like that. We can assume that she is the one that is basically mass murdering people with the wafers and shit, right? So, yeah. So she prepares the 2 communion wafers and everything like that. Daniel realizes that she's killed the churchgoers with the poison wafers and everything like that. And she basically says, they were killed by you. She corrects, and then she basically urges him to make peace with his dead. So saying, I just let them out of this life and into the next, right? You are the one that basically killed them, right? And I hope my dogs don't start barking. I really hope not. This video is almost done. You guys might have heard a little bark there. I'm going to finish it up quickly. So, she basically assures him, they were walkers, essentially. You're the one that killed them, right? Celia brings the wafers to Strand and Thomas and commends Strand for deciding to die with Thomas. She leaves the room and locks it. Nick finds Celia drinking wine in the courtyard, and he basically asks, they're not really dead, are they? And she shakes her head and says they are infected. The infected are simply, what comes next, essentially the afterlife. So this whole Nick is impressionable thing, by Madison, hope that he's not impressionable, because if he starts thinking that, things could really happen there. And I hope that, it doesn't, essentially, is what happens, right? So Thomas now stops breathing and Strand kisses him. As we all know, he is gay. They have a relationship. So Thomas is dead now, and Chris wakes up as Travis sleeps in the adjacent bed. Okay, so Travis stayed with Chris, and Madison stayed with Alicia that night, right? So, like I said, Travis wanted to stay with Chris because, Madison was essentially scared of him and everything like that. Thomas stopped breathing. This is when the point when Strand would, take that wafer and everything like that and join him. Strand searches Thomas's, bedroom drawers and everything like that. We don't know what the hell Strand's going to do at this point. We know that he doesn't kill himself. I already told you that. But he was searching the bedroom drawers. I was literally just hoping that he wasn't going to take the wafer. Chris enters Alicia's room and says Alicia's name. Did he really want her to wake up, or was he testing it? We don't know. He picks up a knife from the bedside table on Madison's side of the bed, and a gunshot rings out, waking Madison and Alicia sees the knife and screams at Chris, and he runs outside. So he was on Madison's side of the bed with a knife in the middle of the night while they were sleeping. And, what the fuck was he going to do? Honestly, I think it's going to be pretty obvious, what the hell he was going to do. But at the same time, I don't really think that, he was going to do that. You know what I mean? I don't think that those were in his intentions. I think that he was caught in a bad time. But at the same time, we have to wonder, if that's the case, if he really was just caught in a bad time and not actually wanting to kill her, what the hell was he actually doing there? Why would he walk in, say Alicia's name, walk over to Madison's side of the bed, pick up a knife from the bedside table, and sort of just, stand there? We have no idea. Did he want a knife to make a fucking sandwich or something? You know what I mean? I have no idea. I have no idea what he wanted to do. This was a part in the episode where I started to question, Chris, the sanity, rather, of Chris, whether or not he actually did want to kill her. I'm still leaning towards, the no side of things. I think that he just wants to protect himself in a way. But I don't have an excuse for what happened there in that last scene. So if you guys have anything, let me know. I still have hope for Chris. Maybe he was just, like I said, caught with his pants down and it looked like he wanted to kill her, right? But, I don't know. I guess I could see it, right? Anything could happen in this Walking Dead world, but, I don't see why he lost it so quickly. You know what I mean? He did lose his mom, and I do get that, but he still has so much going for him. He still has his dad. He still has Alicia. You know what I mean? He had Madison. He still has Madison, right? He still has Madison, but he's the one who killed Reed. You know what I mean? It's not like Madison just straight up lied to Travis saying that, Reed was actually dead and he was going to turn, but he actually wasn't, you know what I mean? So, who knows? You know what I mean? Who knows what he was going to do? And that gunshot rings off, and Chris runs out of the room. Madison and Alicia basically scared, you know what I mean? Essentially, they just seen Chris probably trying to kill Madison. Again, we have no idea if that actually was a thing. And Strand now sits next to Thomas with a gun, and Thomas is shot in the head through the pillow. Very, very brilliant idea by, Strand's point of view, you know, putting the pillow against his head and then pulling the trigger, it will quiet the noise a little bit, but clearly not enough. You know what I mean? Clearly not enough to suppress the noise from waking up everybody in the house. Okay, so he didn't take the wafer with Thomas. He went ahead and took the gun, you know, and killed him that way instead of killing himself with him. And I'm very, very happy for that. You know what I mean? He said to Thomas, you know, I don't have anything else in this world after you're gone, rather. You know, I have nothing to live for. But I think that he does, you know what I mean? And I think that he wants to find it. And I'm very, very glad that he didn't take that wafer, because that would be a very, very big shot fired to the show, because Strand is one of the most interesting characters on the show, in my personal opinion. And that's that, everybody. So that was Season 6. That was Season 6. Yep, we're that far in, everybody. That was Season 2, Episode 6, entitled Sicut Cervus. Make sure you tune in this Thursday. Tune in, rather. I'm I don't know. It's like middle of the afternoon. I don't know why I'm so stuttering. I usually do because I'm tired, but I don't really have an excuse at this point. Season 2, Episode 6, entitled Sicut Cervus. Make sure you tune in this Thursday on my channel, which is actually the 19th of May. Go ahead and tune in for my episode predictions for this week's up-and-coming episode of Fear the Walking Dead, the mid-season finale. That is right, everybody, the mid-season finale. So we will be going on probably a 2-month hiatus, you know, give or take. Not really sure when we'll be back, but there probably will be a date, you know, coming soon when we'll be back. It'll probably be the last 8 leading up to the return of The Walking Dead. So maybe somewhere around July-ish, you know what I mean? The end of July, you know, somewhere around there, maybe the beginning of August. I don't really know. I have no idea. Maybe the midway through August. I have no idea. Anyway, that's that, okay? So mid-season finale this Sunday on AMC, Season 2, Episode 7, entitled Shiva, which is interesting because we actually know of a certain tiger named Shiva in The Walking Dead. Probably no connection, but it is what it is. Pretty interesting. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Until then, bye everybody.